Well, those are the headlines that we're tracking at this hour. I'm Shireen Bhan and you're watching Restarting India. A survey conducted by Oxfam India has revealed that around 80% parents in the states of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Orissa feel that online education across government schools has failed during the lockdown period. 100% of the parents surveyed in the state of Bihar give a thumbs down to online education. Now, when it comes to private schools, around 41% of the parents surveyed said that online education was delivered to their children, but 39% parents complained that they were charged higher fee during the lockdown, even as schools were physically shut. Now, the Oxfam report comes at a time when the centre has told Parliament that online classes are being conducted at schools by employing various digital tools. Further, the centre has said that they have taken various efforts to create digital infrastructure, which would not only be helpful in the current circumstances, but would also help in the future. However, the government is yet to provide nationwide data on exactly how many government schools are currently providing online education. That's not all. The Oxfam survey further points out that 35% of children across these 5 states have been deprived of midday meals. If we consider only Uttar Pradesh, that figure stands at a staggering 92%. Remember, the centre had directed all states and union territories to provide midday meals or food security allowance to students whose schools have been shut due to the pandemic. So that's the Oxfam survey and what it tells us as far as the experience of schools grappling with digital classrooms, with midday schemes through the lockdown period, and it's not looking good. Joining us now to take this discussion forward, Ankit Vyas, Program Coordinator for Central Services at Oxfam India and the author of the report. We also have with us Nagma Mullah, the President and Chief Operating Officer at Edelgift Foundation. Ankit and Nagma, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Ankit, let me come to you first. The data tells us a very dismal picture. And I don't want to make this a blame game because, look, neither were private schools nor were government schools ready to make this digital pivot and make the digital transition. It came as a shock. It came out of the blue. There was no preparation time given to either private schools or to the government schools to make that transition. But that apart, there have been several government orders which mandate, for instance, midday meals, schemes being provided to students. Now, what the data is telling us that government orders have not worked out in reality on the ground, and that's where the problem starts.
Because of which I'm not being able to hear
Ankit, you're probably on mute.
No,
Ankit, can you hear me?
Unmuted. Yeah, I can hear you, but I can hear a lot of sound in the background.
Okay. So my question to you was, what is the survey telling you about the fact that even though there are government orders saying that there should be mandatory midday meal schemes provided in government schools, that there should be no fee hikes, etc., these orders don't really mean much on the ground if your survey is something to go by?
Sorry, Shiri, I'm still hearing...
Okay, let me get Nagma until we fix that audio with you. Nagma, what do you make of what the Oxfam survey is telling us? And as I pointed out, one is the issue of access, the other is the issue of training. I mean, people don't have access to digital classrooms, people don't have access to smartphones, at least not everybody who has been surveyed, or not everybody in the country has that. Then you have the problem of teachers not being equipped to deal with a digital classroom and how you can impart instruction as well as meaningful learning. So, Nagma, what do you make of the Oxfam survey?
No, the Oxfam survey is bringing out what we are seeing across India, within Maharashtra, but also at a global level, Shireen. These are not unique to India problems. We are hearing from our counterparts in the US as well as UK that the same issues exist. Now, when we speak from an India perspective, it's great that the report highlights and brings, the truth right in our faces. Schools understand that. Even as parents of, elite schools or children in elite schools, we understand that. I think it's about what now. Recognizing the problem is a great first step. We've been hearing murmurs around it, but what now? What next is the primary question. If I may start with telling you one of the very proactive and positive steps that I've seen the Maharashtra government take is that they've chosen to look at COVID as a contextual to village issue. So they're looking at it from, every COVID is depending on which location in India you are. the intensity is different in that location. So they're really relying on members of communities, members of the school infrastructure at local levels to really take some important calls on whether schools should open, whether children should be back or not. Simultaneously using everything, television and radio, to impart connectivity and communication with children. I think that's like a positive step. But the report is the beginning of something that is actually asking us as members of civil society and whether we're funders or whether we're corporates or whether we're government, what is the choice that we want to make? What are the steps that we will take going forward?
Yes, you're absolutely right. We need to talk about the steps going forward. But Ankit, if I have you back now, the data point that is really sort of making me feel very, very nervous from the survey, teachers fear that 30% students might not return even after the school reopens. Why are they saying that, Ankit?
I think a couple of reasons. One is because of the prolonged gap, and I think they're also anticipating that this gap is likely to be much longer because there doesn't seem to be a lot of clarity on how we are actually going to transition back to school reopening. And it's also, I guess, the experience of Ebola also shows us that has led to massive rise in dropouts. But for teachers, I think specifically because they're on the ground, they would know personally of cases of students who have dropped out to help their parents in the fields, or students have dropped out to join the workforce, and a lot of that is coming from their own assessment of the situation on the ground, because for most of these kids it's the physical connection with school, the idea of having a place to go regularly, having that structured timetable is what kind of kept them away from dropping out. Now, because of the complete disconnect that these students have experienced, it's been a complete interruption for them in terms of since schools have closed for most of these students. And that's the fear that teachers have, is because of that disconnect that students have with education now, that they're going to drop out. And of course, the economic crisis is a huge factor in that as well.
Yes, the economic crisis is certainly a factor, but I want to focus a little bit on just the government school experience and give you some of the data points that the Oxfam survey is highlighting. 35% of the children have not received midday meals despite the government order. Remember, there is a government order that makes it mandatory for midday meal schemes to be provided. Then it goes on to say that 80% parents of children in government schools say that education was not delivered. 84% teachers are struggling with the digital medium. Over 40% of the schools, government schools, are being used as quarantine centers. So Ankit, while the experience is patchy even when it comes to private schools, it's much worse when it comes to government schools. Do we know how many children are affected?
So this would honestly, in terms of number of children, this is across 5 states, but if one sort of extrapolates this, I would venture to say it would be close to at least 5 crore children who are affected in terms of students who are currently enrolled in schools. So it's a massive number. We've never seen anything at this scale before, and I think one can say that it was because the lockdown sort of came suddenly and one didn't have time to prepare. That sort of explains the first 3 months, but I think looking at the situation now, what we really need is a very structured way to reconnect with a lot of these students. And the objective in this case, I would say, is not strictly learning or making sure, they recover their syllabus. The more important thing is trying to make sure that these kids have completely been sort of almost who have been missed out of the education spectrum, for them to sort of reconnect, so that once schools do reopen, there is a chance of getting them back. Because if we continue to rely on digital modes, the gap for them is going to just get wider, and it'll be very difficult for them to come back to school once schools actually reopen.
Absolutely, the gap will get wider. But Nagma, let's talk about the road ahead. And in fact, just today, the Minister of Education, Ramesh Pokhriyal, in response to a question in Parliament, has outlined the various efforts that the government has made in, like putting the Swayam portal or the Diksha portal together. But importantly, the learning enhancement guidelines for students have only been put together towards almost the end of August, 19th of August to be precise. And these have been shared now with states and union territories, and education, of course, is a state issue. So what is it that you would like to see going forward to address the challenge that Ankit was talking about, that look, we don't know when schools will reopen. If it is going to have to continue to be a digital environment, what can we do?
I really believe if ever there was a time for coordinated effort, this is one where community participation is going to be extremely critical to how the government will succeed or not on field. So like I was mentioning to you earlier, ensuring that school masters, the SMCs, parents and the district officials completely coordinate to make sure children are included as much as possible is our best shot at it. While of course there are other methodologies that the government has to use, the state and central government will have to do a lot more of what has just been put out today. But on ground, in these remote villages or even in Mumbai, we have to understand that the child is now on his or her own. The digital divide has completely made them bereft of any chances unless we have a coordinated effort, which means that the SMCs have to really be used to their full potential. Parents will have to demand that there is integration. There has to be careful understanding of the COVID situation around schools, and principals will have to principals will have to take the lead in taking some critical calls around schools.
Ankit, do you see that happening? Because what we've seen even with this latest unlock phase of guidelines, schools only between class 9 to 12, that too on a voluntary basis, they might experiment with some degree of, physical guidance being given. But, we spoke with many schools, for instance, the head of the CII Education Committee said, we welcome this, it's the need of the hour, we need to get started. But on the other hand, the FICCI head of education suggested that this is not the right time to reopen given the case rise. So there is a divide, and I would imagine that educational institutions also find themselves in a spot because nobody wants to take the responsibility, because at the end of the day you are responsible for the children who are going to be on your premises. So this is that catch-22. How do you see this being resolved?
It is a tricky situation, honestly, but I feel one must sort of look at it on a case-to-case basis. So, states like Chhattisgarh, it started with teachers conducting mohalla classes on their own as a way of reaching out to kids because they thought that their kids were not getting access to it. And then a state like Chhattisgarh has said that, why don't we expand this to villages and districts that don't have high infection rates? And that's sort of been, I think, one of the first states taking a policy decision to, at least have a transition to school reopening. Even though you're not physically opening schools, you're at least providing a space for kids to come regularly, and also do a lot of what Nagma is saying, where they've involved volunteers, the community, to also make sure that there are hygiene requirements are kept in place, the social distancing is maintained. So I think honestly, it depends on a case-to-case basis, but what is important is to sort of take a call about how do we at least transition towards it to allow kids some physical interaction towards reopening of schools. I can understand, of course, in cities where it's very densely populated, physical distancing would also be difficult to maintain. But I would suggest that at least in areas with low infection rates, remote rural districts, one should definitely at least begin the process with mohalla classes.
Yeah. Nagma, let me end by asking you, I think for a lot of people, at least people who are probably watching this show, the issue uppermost in their minds would be how do we ensure that our child doesn't fall behind. But what the survey is telling us is that the reality is what do we do as a nation, as a society, to ensure that kids don't drop out altogether? And are we even thinking about that eventuality, which has got serious implications for us as a country?
No, Shireen, I am representing, as is, Oxfam, the civil society organizations. And I can tell you this is one of the prime worries we are all talking about, planning around. I think as a nation, we have to acknowledge that learning levels are going to drop out, and there are children and girl children. We have not even spoken about them here because of time limit, but girl children are going to drop out, maybe never come back to school again. And these are realities. How to build forward around it, we have to rally together for that. The examples that Ankit has just referred to, Mohalla classes, it means a lot. The community is participating, parents are participating, teachers are participating. We will have to rally around our children, acknowledging that there is a serious disturbance in the lives of the children as well. There are mental health issues, dropout issues, but we will have to give it some time to heal as well. It's not going to be an easy ride. And I think the first step starts from acceptance, which the Oxfam report is doing a brilliant job of bringing it out so that we consume this information, understand the gravity of the situation, and only start building forward. We'll have to acknowledge that something has broken very badly, and we'll all have to sit together.
Yes. Absolutely, and this is our attempt at being able to acknowledge what the Oxfam survey is throwing up. And as I pointed out, it tells us that this is a crisis that requires, in Nagma's words, in Ankit's words, for all of us to work together. The central government, the state governments at the individual level, district authorities, local authorities, and of course civil society. This is too important an issue to be brushed under the carpet. Ankit Vyas and Nagma, many thanks for joining us here on this edition of Restarting India on a very important issue that needs to be talked about. We will take a break. When we return, as a number of COVID-19 cases in India rise, many hospitals are grappling with an acute shortage of oxygen. That and more when we return.